Middle Path Radio, your number one online Islamic talk station.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're listening to Middle Path Radio. I'm Kamal Hussain, and thank you for joining us. And welcome to this evening's Straight Talk. Tonight we have a thought-provoking topic, which I hope you will engage and listen with interest. We would very much like to listen to your point of view and concerns. So please do ring in and take part in this discussion, inshallah. You can call or text 07477080248, or you can tweet us at Middle Path Radio. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I was watching BBC's Big Question, and discussion was on Islam, and you had a panel of Muslims who were from the extreme to moderate to the secular to the feminist, and you had MPs, you had imams, and you had Muslim activists. They were debating each other on whether there should be a British form of Islam. Whilst they were arguing and debating, I was looking at the audience. I could see how this mixed audience were confused and thinking these Muslims are disunited. They don't seem to have a unified Islam. One person even asked, they said, what is true Muslim? What is a true Muslim? And what is true Islam? Sadly, I'm used to hearing from Muslims that we have so many differences and opinions and ideas. How can we ever unite? They say. If I was to talk about unity and recite the Quran and the Seerah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to show them that there is unity in Islam, they would argue, hold on, we have Shia Sunni, we have Hanafi Shafi, we have Maliki, we have many different groups. How can we ever unite? So this is why we want to have a discussion on the whole concept of unity in Islam from various angles tonight, inshallah. To discuss this issue, we have with us Brother Dilwar Mia, who is a community activist, and we have Brother Nizal Hussain, by profession structural engineer, and he is involved in Islamic Dawah, inshallah. So let's start with, does difference of opinion in Islam represent disunity? So, brothers, you can.
Who's it?
It's up to you.
Okay.
Brother Dilwar, you can start. I don't mind.
First of all, Jazakallah khair for inviting me to your program.
Barakallah fi.
Very interesting. Honored to be here as well. Interesting question. And you, in your introduction, you talked about the big debate.
That's correct. Yeah.
I also watched that, and it's clear that you can see. There's a lot of views expressed, and from the Muslims, and often one can ask the question that there is so many views, so which one is the true view? And I don't know if you've watched the show and or notice a clergy they asked that same question, that which is the true Islam? I'm confused here. Yeah. And a reply was given by, I think, a member of the audience as well, that which part of Christianity do you follow? There's, or which denomination do you follow? Indicating that within Christianity, there's also difference of opinion. So, in Islam, there is clearly difference of opinion, and difference of opinion existed throughout the history of Islam. It existed during the Sahabas. It existed during the great scholars' time. The fact that we have, the different schools of thought, the Shafi, Maliki, Hanafi, Hanbali schools of thought, proves that, there is clearly difference of opinion. So it is part and parcel of Islam to have this difference of opinion.
Does religion have, you've got Hinduism, you've got Judaism, you've got Christianity. So I'm assuming there are they sects, or is it just difference of opinion? Because it could be scholars that they have difference of opinion. So what are you saying? Are you saying that in Christianity there's also difference of opinion?
Yeah, if you look at them, I'm talking about within their religions, there's clearly difference of opinion. So within Hinduism, there's different difference of opinion, and different sects, different class structures, and so forth. Yeah, and similar in Christianity, there's also different sect, different denomination, and with Islam as well. There's within the framework of Islam, clearly it's evident, it's obvious that there exists difference of opinion.
Brother Nizam, would you like to come in?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. First, we need to consider when we look at different religions and even non-religions, whether it be secularism, atheism and whatnot, it's when you look at a religion, say a traditional religion such as Hinduism or Judaism, Christianity, you can look at it in terms of a certain structure. So, for example, Islam has an aqidah, which is essentially a basis. And typically you also have things which fall under the category of ibadat, which is to the non-Muslim listeners out there, it's to do with spirituality and worship and rituals. But Islam extends beyond this.
Okay.
And it's within these areas which is to do with implementation of laws, for example, to do with society, muamalat, which is, transactions and things like this, because Islam it covers all the spheres of human life. And that's where these differences of opinions lie. So it's not necessarily that they differ in terms of their basis, their aqidah. So, for example, Christianity has a different aqidah to Islam.
Mm-hmm.
But Christianity essentially is an aqidah, and that's all it is. Buddhism is an aqidah, and that's all it is. Buddhism does not assert any economic system or social system, whereas Islam does. And so this is when you see how Islam has an entire holistic system, the differences of opinion happens to lie within the social areas, the political areas, and this does not affect nor does it interfere with the aqidah.
But I think if you look at the non-Muslims, when they see disunity, they see with for us disunity maybe, or difference of opinion is different to disunity. Because, how about madhabs, for example? Yeah, is that the four schools of thought? Is this not seen as a cause of disunity? Because someone, as some Muslim will say, well, look, this is just difference of opinion. You see, whereas you'll find other people they say, well, look, when the West presents disunity, they will look at that and say, well, look, we do have difference of opinion, and somehow unity or difference of opinion and unity becomes all mashed into one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, how would you look at the four madhabs? Is this not seen as a disunity?
Okay. As for the madhahib, the schools of thought, this I don't see this as something that the non-Muslims regard as a disunity. Not many non-Muslims are aware of what are the madhahib and where do they differ actually. Muslims themselves, they see this as not necessarily a disunity generally. We see this as not a disunity. There is no, I'm not familiar with any particular war in history that was fought between different madhabs as such. And there are no foreign powers who are trying to use one madhab within a particular region against another. This just doesn't exist. It has never materialized really. This is just it's not an issue of aqidah. It's not an issue of spirituality as such. It's to do with those dimensions of religion that don't necessarily even exist in Christianity. It's to do with, for example, inheritance. Inheritance of money. This is something that Islam deals with, but it's not a spirituality. It's not ibadat. But the different schools of thought have opinions on this. So when it comes to madhabs, there is no disunity there.
Okay.
On the issue of madhabs, madhabs do not create disunity.
But is it seen? Is it the cause of disunity? Because
that's what I'm trying to come to, is that having madhab is not the cause of disunity. Yeah, I mean, the reality of Islam is the fact that you will have difference of opinion. The Sahabas, they disagreed on many issues. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the various scholars that came after them, disagreed on various issues, and hence we have all these different schools of thoughts. Yeah, so that in itself is not the cause of disunity. Disunity arises when we don't know, or when we don't have a mechanism by which we resolve difference of opinion. Yeah, and I would say it's also a framework of mind that if we understand that within the framework of Islam, you will have difference of opinion, and this difference of opinion, as long as they are based upon Islam, even if I oppose that view, I should accept that someone can hold those views. Yeah, and if I have that mindset and tolerate those views, then we don't see any problems. But problem arises because we don't have this framework of thinking. We don't know how to resolve difference of opinion, and unfortunately, it's something that's been perpetuated. Even by the Muslims. Yeah, we have different schools of thought, or we have different political, if you like, political thinking, or differences in the branches of Aqidah and so forth. And unfortunately, what we do is we focus on those things that makes us different. Yeah, so focusing on those things, and focusing on those things in a way that we believe that the view that I hold is absolute, and any other views, these people are deviant or heretics, and these people needs to be opposed. This is the thing that creates the problem, not necessarily having those madhabs.
Can I take a text? I've got a couple of texts here, but I'll take the relevant ones, please. So do follow our discussion, inshallah. Is difference of opinion is not an issue, why are we disunited? Difference of opinion is not an issue, why are we disunited? That's the text.
Okay. Can I just add, in response to that, but also in general, if you look at the number of schools of thought that existed in history during the golden age of Islam, when there was generally a unified government, there was what's called a caliph or a khalifa. What we find during the golden age of Islam, which existed in many spheres in terms of technology, in terms of architecture, in terms of art, in all the different spheres of human life, in terms of social progress even, in terms of the literature style that the Arabs had, all of these different areas, during that time in history, there were many more schools of thought then than what exists today. Essentially over the years, through debate, discussion, scholarly debates, different schools of thought essentially were debated out. Some of them are extinct now. So you find today, although we have less madhabs, we have less schools of thought, you can see the disunity today is completely apparent. It's very much visual. But the disunity today, which is apparent, is due to politics. It's due to the fact that there is no political unity. There's no political structure. Whereas in the past, when we had lots of schools of thought, there was at least a unified political structure. So you begin to see there this idea of, if you have schools of thought on scholarly issues, that creates disunity. It's far from the case.
Okay. So Muslim belong to different nations where they have their own language, culture, tradition. Due to this, it seems impossible for them to unite. Would you agree with this statement?
Not really. People have, when you say culture, if you're saying, different culture from culture that exists from outside of Islam, then it's a problem. Yeah. But within Islam, if you're saying, some people, I'm a Bengali, I speak Bangladeshi, I eat a particular kind of food, I dress in a particular way, other people do differently. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you go to Arab lands, they eat different, they have different customs and so forth. Yeah. These are not necessarily issues that divide people. Yeah. What really divides us, and if you really look at our situation, is actually politically is where we are divided, not necessarily based upon our culture or what we speak. And the proof of that is if you look at the disasters that's really happening in Syria. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people, whether you're from Bangladesh, Indonesia, all the people, they feel for the Muslims of Syria. Yeah.
Why I said this? Sorry, I'm just gonna. Is if you look at France and Britain, yeah, even though they are they follow a secular, a liberal viewpoint, they still have disunity, isn't it? Because France is very much into their culture, their language, yeah, and we've always had that. Britain and France, they never got along, yeah. Now, is it that, do we have that? Because we actually, you talked about and you're from Bangladesh, there's brothers who are from Pakistan, but we do have these differences. We do see that, look, Bangladeshi, they have their own language, the culture in terms of they do things differently, yeah. Now, yes, maybe we can.
But this culture, whether it's language or whatever, it existed in the Indian subcontinent for hundreds of years. But despite all these things, they were united under the Mughal rule. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this necessarily is not the problem. The problem is with people who have self-interest. Yeah, they perpetuate these problems. Yeah, these are it can be either politicians or countries. It's in their interest to keep these divisions. Yeah, the old saying that divide and conquer. Yeah. So. If you look at, you talk
British
about
philosophy, isn't it? British.
I'm not sure who said that. It's part of their part of their practice, definitely. Okay. But look at the Middle Eastern countries. Yeah, they're Arabs. They have the same culture. Yeah. They eat the same thing. They dress the same way. But despite all these things, why are they still divided? Yeah, that division is a political division. It's because some Arab, chief, tribal leader, he decided that, he wants to control a particular country, name that country, after himself or some other names. His father's name. Yeah. This is what's causing the division. And it's those rulers who are perpetuating this division. So not necessarily, it's the culture and so forth that divides people. But, you can look at America as well. America, it's a diverse country with immigrants from South America, immigrants from all over the world. But despite all these things, they are still a united nation. They don't have a problem. Yeah.
But Nizal, you want to come in?
Oh, yes, please. There's a reality, and there's also a misconstrued ideal that a lot of people have, which is you've got different races across, from North Africa, Middle East, Mediterranean, Europe, Turkey, Central Asia, Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Thailand and whatnot. And people tend to have this idea that you have all these different skin tones, you have all these different cultures and mentalities, races. We need to be unified. We have to be the same, as if we need to have this ideal, unified, coffee-colored race. This is an ideal that it denies reality. You don't need to have that to be unified. The fact that you have people in Morocco who have access to natural resources that people in the Middle East don't have, and vice versa. The fact that you have people in Southeast Asia who have resources that people in Turkey don't have. This is actually an ingredient, a necessary ingredient to a very effective region state. Yeah. A possible future region state.
Can I, you've just touched on race and racism, and in the UK you find Muslim from Pakistani or Bangladeshi communities who have their own masjids, and they never mix. Don't you think it's a deep-rooted problems that we have? So if you look at Luton, you will have a Pakistani masjid where it's just opposite the road. You've got the Bangladeshi mosque, and this is prayer, this ibadat issues. So it's not the cultural. Is racism? Do you think racism is something? Do we have that in it? Do we have this racist tendencies?
There's two things. First of all, whenever we make a discussion about Islam, we should always look at, first of all, the position of Islam, and also the reality of the Muslims. So we always make a distinction. Asabiyya, which is tribalism in Arabic, it denotes more than just racism, nationalism. Any one of those things is strictly forbidden in Islam. It has nothing to do with Islam. There are many sayings, hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he deals with this issue. Someone who takes up the banner of Asabiyya, of tribalism, he's not from amongst us, meaning the ummah, the community of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, the issue is because Muslims are from different diverse countries all around the world, and this is to do with a human thing, this is a human reality. When you go to a foreign area, a foreign land, you stick to what you're familiar with. That's just the nature of it. So if you look at the expat community, the British community in Spain, they generally congregate around certain areas within southern Spain, whether Costa del Sol and whatnot. That's just natural human psyche. That's just group psychology.
But what I'm saying, I mean, I want to touch on the community, the Muslim communities here, because they are under liberal secularism, secular society, where their any other social dealings are not confined to Islam. But you find this this is a deep problem, and this is why I'm saying that in the Western society where people are educated, where they understand Islam, and I'm assuming that a lot of the community are educated in a sense. If you look back to Bangladesh or Pakistan, where a lot of the Muslims, they have this backward thinking. We have a lot of we have access to knowledge. So why is it? Does Islam create this disunity? Does it have this? Is there an issue here?
Yeah, I mean, what you see, it's the division is obvious, it's observable. You can see that.
Absolutely, yeah, that's it.
There's divisions, but we got to understand that this has nothing to do with Islam. You understand? Islam doesn't say you need to have a mosque specifically for the Bangladeshis or specifically for the Pakistanis. And as the brother here, he elaborated.
Do you think this is from nationalism then?
I mean, there are many factors. Do you understand? Okay. One is that, as the brother said, that it's when they came here, it's a community thing. When Bangladeshis came here, Bangladeshis, they got together and they just wanted to build a mosque, had no purpose or no intention of nationalism or anything. It was just a natural progression. But as time went by, what we see is that there is element of this tribalism and nationalism and so forth. And the way I look at this mosque, it's a micro version of a country, if you like. You've got committee members. They treat this mosque as their own fiefdoms. It's their own little state here. They've established, and they want to keep control of that. And they want to keep control of their flocks as well. And that's why you'll see quite often that in those mosques, they actually perpetuate those divisions as well. So in the mosque, you will have, if it's a particular mosque belonging to a particular group, in the mosque they will use that particular mosque to attack other groups. If it's a particular sect, they will use those mosques to attack different sects. So it's about
different ideas.
It's about keeping control. So we know this historical struggle between quote and unquote Wahhabism and Brelvis and so forth. So they will use this mosque to further divide the community. As I said, it's a smaller version of the state. This is what we governments do on a state level. To keep the Muslims divided. So, I'm a Bangladeshi and he's a Pakistani, he's a Saudi and, he's a Kuwaiti, keep those divisions. So they, in a way, maybe subconsciously, we practice those things on a smaller level in our mosques as well. And unfortunately, this breeds into these divisions that we already have.
Can nationalism truly unite people? I mean, Brother Nizar?
Nationalism to unite people.
Because if you look at why I'm saying that, if you look at Pakistan or Bangladesh or UK, there's some sort of unity, isn't it? I mean, if you look at UK, it is united, even though they have different, of opinions and thoughts and etc. They are united. So Labour Party, your Conservatives or Liberals or whatever, they have difference of opinion. But when it comes to the nation, they are united. So can Muslims, is nationalism something that the Muslim can, look towards for unity?
I mean, the Muslim world is full of modern nation states today. They're all secular, by and large. Most of them are secular. even if you were to accept the ones who claim to be Islamic states, the majority are still secular. The issue is, even if you embraced nationalism, there's no solution that emanates from that thought or idea. So you need something that doesn't just appeal to the emotions, but it actually has something that's productive. And what you see when you look at nationalism is very, it sounds a bit harsh, but from an Islamic perspective, anything to do with asabiya, tribalism, essentially, which is what nationalism is, it appeals to a very primitive instinct. It's an instinct that you only consider an external threat, and only then nationalism seems to strengthen. So provided you have that external threat, nationalism is very vibrant in society, but it's a very declined way of thinking, really. And if you look at all the different societies in different parts of the world, you'll notice usually it's the most impoverished within that society who are the most nationalistic. You only have to look at Kensington or Chelsea.
Yeah.
Do you find Union Jack flags flying anywhere? Or do you find them on the estates? Which one is it?
On the states.
So this is clearly to be seen. You know, it's the case where you have poverty, you will have mass nationalism. You'll have that ethnic superiority and whatnot.
Yeah, I think there's a concept of, in the West they have a concept of pluralism, which means people have difference of thoughts, ideas, belief, yet they coexist, and are unified, somehow unified. Is there any pluralistic ideas in Islam that you can have to create unity?
Quickly, just a point on the issue of nationalism. If you look at the West, or if you look at Britain, it's not necessarily united on nationalism. Because you see, the Welsh, the Scottish, it's part of Britain, and they would consider themselves different race. So what really unites the people in Britain is that they are united on some core fundamental principles or values, which, whether you're a Scottish person or a Welsh person or an Englishman, they believe in those things. So what they've done is they've united the nation on core ideas and values. For us, nationalism, we know clearly from an Islamic perspective, it is prohibited. We don't unite ourselves, or we don't call on the basis of tribalism or nationalism and so forth.
But we do, though, isn't it? Unfortunately,
we do, unfortunately, because of we've adopted those ideas due to some various factors. One of them factor is that the foreign influences or colonialism that Muslim countries experience.
I'm just going to bring a text in, just so hold on to that. The text says the Ummah would love to unite, as that brings strength to it. However, at the same time, we are stuck to our nation state over Islam, e.g., the Syrians are not allowed to enter Turkey because they're not Turkish, although they're dying and are being bombed, yet being Turkey is more important than human life.
Yeah, I mean, whoever texted that is absolutely right. The Ummah does want to unite, and the proof of that is it's out there. It's so obvious that why would a person who's from Bangladesh feel for the problem of a Muslim in Syria? They're helping the Muslims of Syria, whether economically or physically, whichever way they want to help, they're helping them. So the Muslims, the masses, they don't have these notions of divisions. And what really makes them feel for these people is the aqidah that they share, the common belief that they share, the common culture that comes from Islam. This is what they hold on to, and this is what they share. And hence, the Muslims would want to unite. The problem, as I said earlier on, the problem is political. The problem is we have rulers imposed upon us, and they are the rulers who are keeping us divided. These are the people who issues you visas, passports, and border controls and so forth. These are the people who are celebrating this division. Yeah, we celebrate national holidays of being a Saudi or being a Kuwaiti or being a Bangladeshi. These are the things that are keeping us divided. Yeah,
so
they are actively doing that. Sorry, they are actively doing that to maintain the current status quo. So the problem lies in the political, the ruling class that we have, not necessarily.
Let me. You just hit the I think the note here. Is the government or the West using our differences to create divisions and hate amongst Muslims?
Definitely, anyone would do this. Any adversary would look at weaknesses in his opponent. Yeah, if we know the West, particularly Britain, America, they have a specific agenda in the Muslim world, and they realize that Islam is as a way of life is an alternative to capitalism and is challenging capitalism at the moment. There's no communism.
Do Muslims want to unite? That's the thing. Do Muslims want to unite? Because obviously we can blame the West. We can blame the governments for putting puppets in the Muslim world. But do Muslims, do they really want to unite? Because we see from, generally we don't see that's not the case. For some reason, we're always fighting each other. Sorry, Brother Nizal, you wanted to come in?
Well, the first thing I think, and it's really, really crucial, as Muslims, we sometimes, especially with this current situation globally, we tend to let our emotions lead us. We need to look at things as rationally as possible in terms of the reality. I mean, if you look at the Muslims today across the globe, there is definitely a strong Islamic sentiment, and it's always existed, to be honest. In the Muslim world, whether it's North Africa, Middle East, Turkey even, the sentiment is growing even in Turkey, a country that was always very secular. The sentiments within the Muslim world is always actually more Islamic than nationalistic. If you contrast that with Europe, in European countries, national sentiments are always stronger than religious sentiments. In Europe, in the West, you can have comedians who mock religious figures in Christianity, and this happens often. Whereas in the Muslim world, you'd never dream of that. You could. People within cafes within Egypt would say something wrong about the politicians, and they may do it in secret because the oppressive rules that exist within the Muslim countries because of these secular governments. But at the same time, the religious sentiments in the Muslim world are actually very strong. The only barrier are the Muslim governments, the governments in the Muslim world. This is the only issue. And again, you can contrast that with Europe. National sentiments in Europe are very strong amongst the people, yet the governments in Europe are always pushing for legislation for a unified European Union. Even though Britain is not part of it, when it comes to construction,
they want to leave, isn't it?
That's it. But the government at the same time, in the UK, is always pushing for Euro legislation, Euro codes to do with construction. So they're already emerging policies and also building regulations and whatnot to do with construction. They're merging the countries together through legality, whether the public accept it or not. But with the Muslim world, it's the inverse opposite.
Okay, I'm getting a lot of text messages, so I'm going to read a couple of those out. It says, the Muslim will not unite until the arrival of Imam Mahdi. Do the panelists agree? Okay, that's the first one. And the second one I'll read out. We say, we are a glorious ummah when united under Islamic leadership. How can we reunite again? Is it ever possible? So can we reunite again? Is it possible? Or are we waiting for Imam Mahdi? Because there are Muslims that, they will say, look, it's all doom and gloom. We can never unite. Look at the issues in the Middle East. We only Mahdi can come and unite us and give us the true leadership. How do you argue this?
Yeah, I mean, it's sad when Muslims think in that particular way, that Imam Mahdi will come and unite us. I mean, the issue of unity is it's not specific to the Muslims. Do you understand? I mean, throughout the world we see people united. Yeah, in different. There was a time when vast piece of land in the Soviet Union, where different culture, different people, they're united. In Britain, people are united. They're trying to unite as well further with the European Union. So it's not the issue of unity is not unique to the Muslim. Why do we see that as Muslims we can't unite when we share the same culture, the same belief? We believe in Allah, we believe in the same Prophet, we believe in the same Quran. It's not impossible. What is confusing is we don't know where to unite. People think that we all need to follow the Hanafi madhab, probably, or we all need to be a particular, school of thought. That's why it's confusing. Yeah. But if we understand that the unity is actually based upon, we need to agree upon certain core fundamental principles, that will govern our society. Yeah. If we can agree upon that, then unity is a possibility. And these are things that we already agree. So we all agree that one Allah. We all agree that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a prophet. We all agree that we need to follow the Quran. We all agree that we need to have Sharia law. These are core fundamental principles that we all agree upon. Yeah. So why is it that we think that it's difficult? Yeah?
In reality, theological differences can cause disunity, such as the Sunni and Shia division in the Middle East. I mean, how do you explain that?
First of all, we can go into that.
Go for it,
just a question to do with, there's two ways of answering, do we just wait for Imam Mahdi, right? Two ways of looking at that. First of all, in terms of the evidence for Dalil, we can go straight to it. The issue is that Imam Mahdi will arrive when the Khilafah will already be established. Okay. So this is just a.
So when there will be some sort of leadership in the Muslim world, and then you're saying Imam Mahdi.
That's it. That's case for listeners to simply research up on, find that from your nearest sheikh, find out that's essentially it. So that's the clear way of dealing with. That's an intellectual way.
Because just in terms of your discussing Imam Mahdi, will he come and take over leadership, or will he create leadership, or
the leadership will already be established,
and then he will simply just take over. Yeah.
So essentially, the meaning of that is
happen after the death of a particular Khalifa.
Okay.
And there'll be some dispute, so people would give him the bay'ah.
Okay. So these are the details that is missing, isn't it? That's why those people that cite these examples, they miss the main ingredients, isn't it? Which is that there will be a existing Khalifa who will pass away, and then he will be elected. Yeah.
See, the problem is, as Muslims today, we have this. It's an emotional problem where we tend to look at things as spectator Muslims. We're looking at things as this will happen towards the end of times. This will happen. There's nothing we can do. We basically allow our emotions to be molded by the reality around us. It should be the other way around. If we look at the Sahaba in history, the disciples of the Prophet ﷺ, the way they acted was the exact inverse opposite. They looked at the reality around them, which was very bleak at that time, and it was their iman that shaped how they thought in their intellect, how they felt in their emotional conviction, and how they acted. And collectively, as a jama'ah, as a structured group, they brought the changes that we see, and the rest is history. So if they managed to do it in their time, we should see them as an example for us to follow, an excellent example as well. So that's the way. So there's two issues. There's one, the intellectual issue, which is, we can't unite Imam Mahdi, etc., and all of this. Well, simply,
so does it need political activism? Yeah. Okay. So this is what I want to maybe look at a little bit more. People argue that it is the Muslim organizations and groups who create this unity, because they go out there and say, "Oh, this is wrong. This is how it should be," and this is what we've seen in the BBC's Big Question, where you had different groups, organizations. They are almost the spokesperson for the Muslim community, really, and they would argue that organizations and or groups create disunity, but we see that's not the truth, because these organizations who are in the forefront in raising awareness of issues, suffering of Muslims across the world, like Palestine, Syria, do you think having groups is a good thing? Do you think this is the way forward for raising awareness for the Muslims to think about unity?
Yeah, I mean, working for good, as much people can get involved with that, or as much as groups that can get involved in that, it's a good thing. Do you understand? We should not be selfish and think that, hey, look at me, I'm doing something good, and I just hold on to it, and I don't want anyone else to be involved with that. Yeah, so it's a good thing. It's a positive thing that the more the Muslims become activists, there's more groups that works for the social changes that we need, the Muslim Ummah desperately need. It's a good thing. Yeah, but why people see these things as a problem, I'll say is, as I said earlier on, it's we don't know how to look at difference of opinion. Do you understand? Yeah, that framework of thinking. If we accept that as long as someone is doing his actions based upon Islam, naturally there will be differences. Yeah, one particular organization might want to do things in a particular way based upon what he understand or that organization understand to be Islam. Yeah. So if I can accept that, then I have no problem. I have no problem with other organizations, working to bring back Islam. Yeah,
so it's a good thing. Yeah?
It's a good thing. It's our mindset. It's the way we think. Do you understand? But unfortunately, I'll just make that quick point. Unfortunately, what's happened is that we're in a way we are biased in terms of the way we look at Islam, and this is something that it's been drummed into our brain. Yeah, we don't ask the same question when we look at secular politics. We never said, hang on, why is there Labour Party, Liberal Party, and Conservative Party and UKIP Party? Yeah, this is all confusing. This is all creating divisions. Yeah, we never look at it like that. We don't. If it's like Bangladesh,
actually, they think it's a good thing, isn't it? Because having these groups means that we can look at all the possibilities. Yeah. And we can help each other. That's what they have in question time, where they have difference of view. They want to really thrust it out. They want to just get it out and debate, isn't it?
Yeah. That's why I think there's an agenda here to sort of put Islam on the defensive, or to maybe show that Islam has some weakness. So this big debate question that happened on BBC, and asking this question, which Sharia do I follow? I mean, one could ask, which democracy do I follow? Which liberalism do I follow? Because there's shades of liberalism. There's within democracy, secularism, you have right wing, left wing, middle path, all these things. So why is it that when it comes to Islam, you're saying, look, this difference is a bad thing, but within say like Western liberalism, it's okay. So unfortunately, we need to get out of thinking like that, and we need to accept that Islam, as long as it's within the framework of Islam, I should tolerate difference of opinion.
Brother Nizal, what's your thought?
Okay, in terms of Jama'ah, in terms of having groups, etc., there's three main issues. There's, first of all, once again, the reality around us. There's the problem of the Muslim psychology today, and there's what Islam has to say. Islamically speaking, Islam itself, there's a lot of it that's collective effort. Even our ibadat, our prayers, praying in Jama'at together is far more valuable than doing it on your own.
On your own, of course.
There's zakat itself, which is a collective thing. You go to Hajj, that's collective again. So it's during your fasting, you do Tarawih Salah, which is again collective. So you find there's lots of issues and lots of areas within Islam that deals with governing society as well. Rules of inheritance even. Islam is not an ascetic religion. Islam is not a religion where you stay in a monastery, you're completely absolved from the rest of society. This is not Islam. So the reality of Islam, even our second Khalif, Ibn al-Khattab radiyan, who he said, Islam without Jama'ah, he said, there is no Islam without Jama'ah, and there is no Jama'ah where there is no Amir. There is no Amir, meaning a leader, without Amr, without power. So you see there a very practical example of how Islam, the method of Islam is you need to have collective effort, you need to have organized effort. This is from Islam, this is the way it always has been.
And so the groups, I just want to look at groups. I know there's so much you can really, it's a big subject, but what we see in the media is that organization groups, they highlight the Muslim issues. So Palestine, Syria. There are Muslim groups who are political. There are Muslim groups who are doing charity work. We know there's an organization who is constantly on the media because they are discussing Guantanamo Bay and the unjust reality of the Muslims who are, there. But we find that scholars, they are they natural leaders? Should they be discussing? Can they really unite? Because a lot of the time we find the individuals that say, oh, look, you guys there's groups and organizations, they're confused in everything. Maybe we need to have scholars to, guide us.
Okay, in regards to that, first of all, we do have, again, it's a problem of Muslim psychology now. Historically, in the classical period where we had lots of debate, we had many schools of thought, the Muslim world was very developed. It can be argued, and it is argued, it was the most advanced civilization of its time, and it was a major chapter of human history. And that was with lots of debate, lots of discussion, which was led by the scholars, by the ulama of that time in history. The ulama were not just ascetics who just deal with just spirituality. They dealt with all the spheres of human life. Whereas unfortunately today we do have a clergy mentality. We definitely have the clergy, even though Islam has no clergy. Officially Islam has no clergy. We have no pope. We have no Islamic pope. A Khalifa is not an Islamic figurehead. He's a political leader. And unfortunately, what we need is a change of psychology. We need to break this cycle in which we have this clergy culture.
Are you discussing solutions in terms of how can Muslims unite? Is that what you're saying?
Oh yes, this is important, because if we were to have ulama today who are to lead Muslims towards unity, they need to accept Islam the way the classical scholars did, which is comprehensively and completely. So Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimullah, the way he spoke of Islam, his writings, he deals with imara, leadership, all of his qualities, where today you find there's a rift.
They were under leaders. If you look at, some of our classical scholars, they were under a political leadership. Do you see? So they were scholars where maybe theological differences, but in terms of political, they were under the caliphate that you were saying.
Yes.
But if you look at the Muslim world now, you find, even going back to Pakistan or Bangladesh, you'll find scholars who lead movements in I don't know what's in just
Yes.
prayers or just ibadat issues.
Of course,
you see, they don't see Muslim the ummah issue. It's not an ummah issue for them. You see, it's about very nationalistic, and that's why we need to maybe look at this quite.
But this idea that the classical scholars in history, they were under a khilafah in history anyway.
Yeah.
This doesn't put them in absolute comfort, because we know our classical scholars, the giants of history in Islamic history, they were all imprisoned. They all underwent lots of they underwent hard times in history. So they took the leaders back then to account, and yet the leaders back then were better than what we have today.
Yeah.
So it's the onus is on our scholars of today to definitely to boost up the work and get involved.
I have a text, and it says, we are discussing the symptoms. What is the solution? I think we've got 10 minutes left, so we can actually discuss the solution now.
Can I just make a quick point on?
Yeah, go for it.
On our leaders, the scholars. Yeah. I think it'll be inaccurate to say that all our ulamas are not doing anything. Yeah, or
that's correct. I mean, you can't just brush everyone.
Definitely.
I mean, there are definitely a lot of scholars who are working to unite the Muslims.
Who are in prison.
Who are in prison, yeah, that's right. So we can't make that blanket statement. There are definitely some who are, perpetuating the division, yeah. In terms of, the solution, look, we can't look for, I believe, we can't look for artificial unity. Yeah, and what I mean is that if we think that we want to unite everyone on a particular method of praying, it's impossible. Yeah, if we think that we want to unite people on a particular school of thought, it's impossible. Yeah, because human nature is that they will have difference of opinion. Yeah, and Islam allows that flexibility of difference of opinion. So really, what we need to think is, where do we unite? And where we need to unite is on the political level. yeah, on a societal level. That's where we need to unite. We need to ensure that, there's no country called Kuwait or Saudi Arabia or Pakistan or Bangladesh, yeah. We are all one nation, yeah. And as I said, to really unite on that basis, you got to actually unite on some core fundamental principles. Yeah, you don't have to agree with everything, but you have to agree with core fundamental issues, i.e. that Islam is a way of life. Islam, the Aqidah of Islam needs to be the basis of our society, and all our rules and regulations needs to be derived from the Islamic Aqidah. Now, within that, of course, you're going to have difference of opinion, and because of that, Islam has a principle, and it's a mechanism by dealing, how to deal with that problem, is that it gives the authority to the Imam, to the ruler, the Khalifa, to adopt a particular law or rule and impose it.
It's not on the ibadat issues, though, is it?
It's not. Yeah,
Okay.
It's not on the, because you're going to have so many issues that the difference of opinion exist. Yeah, so the way you resolve those issues is that you have a ruler, and that ruler will implement a particular law. Now, whether we like it or not, we have to follow that.
So an example would be the divorce law. Let's just
That's
say,
right.
yeah. So the government can say, look, this is what we'll adopt, and everyone in the courts, this is what will be applied, even though you have a difference of opinion in terms of
that's right. So if you look at when Abu Bakr radiallahu anh became the Khalifa, he had some internal turmoil at that time. There were people who were refusing to pay the zakat. We had the false prophets. And Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anh, he had a particular view. On one particular issue, he disagreed with Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, was that the army that was appointed by Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Umar al-Khattab felt that we got so much turmoil within the state now, you should not dispatch that army.
The army of Usama bin Zaid.
Yeah, but Abu Bakr, he said he stuck to that. Yeah, and he was the leader. Yep. Yeah, he had that right to
the final say.
Final say. Yeah, so that's the way we have to look at it. That there is a mechanism by which we can resolve all these things. But fundamentally, I will say, look, we need to unite on core issues. Yeah, and as I said, the core issue being that Islam should be the basis by which we regulate our society.
Brother Nizal?
Yes, I would say that we need to have a sense of priorities. We as Muslims, we tend to, especially in this day and age, psychology-wise, we make a big deal out of issues that were never an issue historically.
Okay.
There were more schools of thought historically, and yet that was our golden age. So what was different then as what exists today?
So
political
if you look at,
unity.
Sunni and Shia, they existed,
of course,
for 1400 years without any. I mean, obviously there are some.
There were episodes.
Yeah, there were episodes. But in terms of overall, they were under the Islamic ruling system, which they thrived, isn't it?
That's right. And even in terms of the Sunni Shia divide historically, you had Imam Jafar, who was essentially, you could say, is the fifth madhab in history.
Mm-hmm.
You had giants like Abu Hanifa rahimullah who studied with Imam Jafar's father. And you begin to see this. You find
they had the debate,
studied.
Amicable debate,
yes,
with the scholars, isn't it?
They were studying together. So you find compilations about hadith within Imam Jafar's madhab, which is essentially the madhab of Shias today.
Mm-hmm.
So you begin to see that, and you realize it
some
didn't.
Shias, though.
Some Shias, yeah, fair enough.
But what I'm saying in Sunni thing, there's deviancy. In Shia, there's deviancy. I mean, you can't say all Shia, all Sunni, they're deviants. You see. So I think my final, maybe what I want to go on to is how would unity manifest? How was unity manifested in the past, and how can we see unity now? How do we see unity in the future?
Okay, well, first of all, we need to establish unity based on Aqidah. That's the first thing, and we have to accept there needs to be discussion, debates. there's a whole lot of myths out there about Shias, and I wouldn't even know where to start. There's just way too many. And this is something we need to develop intellectual culture away from just following Islam based on tradition and based on what our families, that's fine. Respect what your families say.
What the media is propagating. Because
what the media is propagating.
We can see Iran and we can see Saudi Arabia, the conflict that's taking place in Yemen.
But this clergy mentality in our masjids, that perpetuate the myth about Shias and whatnot, we need to verify this. We have to verify this. And I reckon there is myths the other direction as well, regarding Sunnis as well. But that's
what I'm saying. This Shia community, I'm sure they have this.
Of course, there must be. I've been doing some research on the Shias. They do not believe the Quran has been altered. They do not worship Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam or Ali radiallahu anhu. They do not believe that Angel Jibreel alayhi salam selected the wrong person. Absolutely not. And Sunnis, we do not believe the killing of Imam Hussain was justified, was good. So there's lots of myths that are perpetuated non-stop. But this does not benefit the Ummah. The discussion should not be even on there. The division in history was to do with where should the Khalifa be? Or should it be with Abu Sufyan's family, the Banu Umayyah, or should it go with Ahlul Bayt? And we know that Imam Abu Hanifa himself, he actually agreed towards the end, rahimullah, that actually it should be of Ahlul Bayt, absolutely. And then he was in prison because of it. So you begin to see that this issue today is a moot point because there is no Khilafah today. So what are we debating historically?
So are we saying Khilafah is unity?
Absolutely, yeah.
But Dilwar?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm talking about. You need the political unity. Do you understand? Look, there's various things that we've tried.
We're not talking about the ISIS Khilafah, though, are we?
Of course not. ISIS Khilafah, it creates division. It's creating this.
So what would Khilafah look like?
Yeah. Well, the Khilafah to actually...
I know it's a big subject. I want you to just give us some...
What Khilafah would look like is, I would say, we need to look at the Khilafah that Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam established in Medina. Yeah, this is the best example of a Khilafah that we should aspire for and we should work for.
So if for our listeners... What would you, if they, after this, if they are confused, more confused, then how would you clarify? Maybe in a couple of sentences to say, look, this is what unity would look like.
Okay, go
on. I would say, first of all, a khilafah which is established on the manhaj of the Prophet ﷺ, it would reverse the Sykes-Picot agreement easily. Unfortunately, ISIS, its position in the Middle East, if anything, it has strengthened the Sykes-Picot agreement. And for those who aren't too sure, the Sykes-Picot agreement was written between France and Britain at the end of the First World War. That essentially sectioned off the dying Khilafah, the old Islamic Caliphate. It cut it up into different portions based on where oil reserves were and whatnot, divided the countries up. And that's where we have the problem today. The Assad family, they're in position because it was a power struggle between France and Britain. France initially had Syria, then the British government managed to take over Syria, putting a minority government in power over Sunni majority. Classic thing, did the opposite in Bahrain, put a Sunni minority government over a Shia majority people, keep the people divided. The minority government, to stay in power, needs to gain assistance from its foreign power. So you create you create a dependence of that government on yourself. So it's very, very effective. The effect of ISIS within the Middle East, if anything, it's galvanized the Kurds towards Kurdish nationalism. It's galvanized Sunni Shia divide even further. So it's basically done propaganda for Donald Trump, essentially. Effectively. So it's, if anything, it's pushed the Khilafah back quite a few steps.
Brilliant. Brother Dilwar, last word from you, please. How would unity look like? What can we see in the future?
Yeah, unity, what would look like is that we don't have all these artificial borders. The Muslim Ummah is united under one Amir, and that state would have as its basis the Islamic Aqidah and would be ruling according to the Sharia. But that does not mean that within the state you're not going to have difference of opinion. You're still gonna have the Shafi opinion, the Hanifi opinion, and so forth. And different movements and so forth, all within the framework of Islam. This is the unity that I see in the future, inshallah. Other various models we've tried, division didn't work. We divided amongst ourselves based upon nationality. It's created more problems on artificial things like Arab League, Muslim League, SARC, and so forth. This has not created any unity. We need to look back at history. The only time that the Muslims were united was when they were united under the caliphate system, and that's the model that I look forward to.
Jazakallah khair. Very big topic, a lot to think about. I think one thing we can do here maybe is go back and do our research. I think this is something that is encouraged by our panelists. And I'd just like to end by thanking our guests for coming in and discussing this topic on unity. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair for having us.
I'm sure we have gained and benefited much from this discussion. Jazakallah khair for everyone for listening, and special thanks to our listeners. I hope you can join us next week at Straight Talk. You can follow us on Twitter at Middle Path Radio and continue with this discussion. Also, if there are any topics or issues that you would like to cover or discuss, please contact us via our Twitter account. Again, thank you for listening to Middle Path Radio.